Welcome to the webinar, the NECR Veterans Panel webinar for 2021. I am super excited to host and moderate for the NECR program our very first Veterans Panel in honor of Veterans Day, which is on November 11th. I'm also excited to have the people who we have here with us today. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. I'm going to call on them. But first, I want to begin by saying in 2010, I had the opportunity to enter the NECR program, to graduate from it. And so I'm count myself as the old head among the groups here right now. I graduated in the first class. I'm La-Verna Fountain. And I also happen to be very proud to be a U.S. Army veteran. And you will hear potentially today a little inside joking among us on which branch of the service is the best. Because, you know, we know it's the Army, but just in case you might hear that from people. But in the end, here's what I can say. As veterans, we all support each other and we're proud and we are grateful to be able to be a part of Columbia University's honoring of veterans today. So to begin, I'm actually going to do the Hollywood squares, and I'll go by the squares on my box. That's the best way for me to call people and ask people to introduce themselves. Omar, I'm going to call on you first just because you took that sip of coffee or whatever you had already. So please unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Tell us what branch of service you come from, or if you're still serving, and anything else you'd like to talk about today.
Good morning, everyone. Everyone can hear me right? I'm guessing.
Yes.
So I'm Omar Johnson, a 2015 NECR grad. Hands down, one of the best programs, most transformational programs you're going to find out there in the world. And I've been to a lot of programs. I am an Air Force veteran, 14 years, and currently in the process of fully transitioning from the armed services. Some highlights, I guess, from some of my time in the service. These ones I'm most proud of is I got to do the squadron command role. That was my last role. That was really fun, and I've served with a lot of Army, Marines, sailors, and Coast Guard. So I'm really proud of that as well. Nice to meet you guys, and look forward to taking part in this.
Thank you, Armar. Michael, tell us a little bit about you, please.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting this together. This is so fun. So thank you. My name is Mike Leach. I spent 6 years in the U.S. Army. I was an intel officer and an Army officer, or an infantry officer as well in the U.S. Army. I went through Ranger School, went through Airborne School, caught a deployment to Afghanistan in 2013, and graduated from West Point in 2011. So I'm a 2019 NECR grad, hands down, incredible program. So happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Michael. Asif, talk with me.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here, because this is something I've been looking forward to. And I understand this is the first year, and I want to see this continue every year, because it's worth it to reach out to other veterans who I find this program is very suited for. And I'm hoping that I get to see more veterans in the next panel, and more veterans come to this program over time. 2018 is my graduation year from NECR. I don't have to repeat it, but it is the damn best program that I've ever came across. And it's coming from a technical person. I'm a I have cybersecurity and AI machine learning background, and I just think this program transforms a whole lot of technology and society, if I may say so. I'm an Air Force veteran. I have been in Afghanistan in 2013, just like Michael. Glad to hear that somebody's been in Afghanistan in the same year as me. Probably have some stories to share. Iraq back in 2006 and 7, when the insurgency was happening. And in between, I've been overseas for 9 years total out of 10. So I've seen some of the conflicts that I can elaborate to, and connect NECR programs and all the dynamics that comes with the negotiations and conflict resolution. Got out of military after 10 years, and I guess I get lucky over and over. I ended up in the damn best branch as well, and had a hell of a time. A hell of a time, as in the sense that our job was risky, but it was worth every penny. It was worth every second. So, yeah, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it, La-Verna, for putting this together. You're amazing.
Oh, Steve, thank you. My heart is overflowing. Just so far, just listening to three of you, my heart is like, oh, and part of me is like, you people who have not been in the military, it's hard for them to understand how special it is to connect with veterans. There's something just almost magical about being connected to veterans. And then we have the double space of being a part of NECR. And I want to say, for those who don't know what NECR is, it's negotiations and conflict resolution. And to have veterans care, it just goes to a higher level. There's something special happening there. Agata, are you still with us? You have yourself blacked out. Tune in for us, Agata. Talk to us.
Yes, I am. Good morning. My name is Agatha Roots. I'm a retired Marine Corps veteran. The highlights of my career, as I was one of the first female test cases to be attached in training with infantry battalions. Used to be called Lioness. Unfortunately, recently you heard on the news about the FET team in Afghanistan. So my experience was the precursors to that role. I graduated 2019. Again, it was a transformation experience for me to graduate from Columbia to begin with, and from an NCR program, in big part to the generosity of the GI Bill, which maybe we can elaborate later on. Currently, I'm a foreign affairs officer at the State Department, and I work in international security. And my portfolio includes non-proliferation efforts. And I'm really glad that other branches consider themselves almost on par with the Marine Corps. But I think we'll leave it there.
Okay,
The Marine
everyone
Corps is
has
part
to
of the
get ready
Navy,
for
by the way,
this now.
everybody. It's not its own branch. It's a subset of the Navy.
See, now everyone just be ready for this. It is going to continue throughout. Although I will say my husband was in the Air Force, retired from the Air Force. So I got to give some kudos to the Air Force as well. I have no option. And quite frankly, we all give kudos to our Marines. That's just a reality check. We all do. So Agata, I just gotta go ahead and give some honor to you right now and appreciate you for what you're doing. Agata, if it's okay, I believe that you also are married to someone in the military.
Oh yes, my husband was issued to me, like most gear in the Marine Corps, by the Marine. So my husband is a Marine. Currently, he was on active duty, become a reservist, and now is activated. So he's back on active duty. So we're a military family. Really, probably fair to say, very humbled and grateful for opportunities and challenges that the ability to defend United States gave us.
Thank you. It's interesting because as we think about honoring veterans, I think each of us can also pay honor to veteran families, right? Our families all do pay a price with us. We're never alone. I'll say it that way. We're never, ever alone. Our families are always with us. One of the things that happens to me often, and it may happen to you, and as you look at my background, it says, thank you, veterans. You know, I had the privilege of being in the Army right at the end of the Vietnam War. I went in 1975. And the reality is that many of our Vietnam veterans were not treated so well. When they came home, there weren't a lot of people saying to them, thank you for your service. Today, that's changed. Today, people say thank you for your service a lot, or it happens to me a lot. I'd like to see which of you would like to respond to that. How do you feel when someone says thank you for your service? How does that make you feel? Anyone want to take that on? Asif, I see Asif, and then we'll go to Agata.
I just unmuted myself just in case, but I'll go first. I'll take a different swing at it because I had to tell a story to a group of people about what does that mean previously? And I said the same thing I'm about to say right now, which is I never heard that term while I was in military, because I was stationed overseas. And when you're stationed overseas, you're only around military people, and nobody really goes around and tells another military guy like, "Thank you for your service," right? And it became normal after a while, because I last year of military, I was stationed in Colorado Springs. So I'd seen that "Thank you for your service" statement coming my way multiple times. And I graduated from a program which was geared to the veterans, to help veteran employment, and help with the veteran employment after they separate from the service and have to transition into something that they're not trained in. So it was a difficult transition for me to transition out of military's security, anti-terrorism related work into a tech world. And I guess the amount of struggles that I went through, I just realized that somebody in some group also put the same amount of struggle to make sure that I succeed as a veteran, which was astonishing to me, because I was just like, why would you do that? This is hard enough as it is for me to learn something new, and here you are struggling with me to teach me something new. And what that meant to me at the end of the program is that, yeah, this is what it means. Like, this is how deep that statement is. Thank you for your service. And somebody made sure that they thanked me for my service in a fashion that, I just couldn't fathom. It wasn't about money that they put out. It wasn't about the time that they put out. It was just that struggle to see me struggle, and they're struggling with me. I thought that was very unique in how they were, giving back what they thought was very worthy of, So I guess to me, that made the president that never let me down ever again, for whatever that means. So thank you for your service. Whatever it means to other people, it has another sense of meaning for me, because when somebody says it, I'm just like, man, I don't know where it's coming from, but I've seen the example of it.
Nice. That's very nice. Thank you, Asif. Agatar, you there? There you are.
Yes. So very similarly, I never, or probably didn't pay attention, encounter that phrase before leaving the Marine Corps. And there's maybe twofold for me. First, it was really uncomfortable, because my first initial response was, thank you for paying taxes, which probably was a little bit semi-humorous. And then thinking, thank you, but remember, some people didn't get to come back, which I always keep in my mind. And also, it was, at least when I got out initially, an invitation to conversation with Americans that maybe sometimes forget that we're still at war. At least our generation, we are still at war. So there is this, we are in state of war. And the other fold is a gender component. Whenever I was celebrating Veterans Day and I was with my husband, it was automatic to him, thank you for your service. Oh, that must be a wife. And at that point, I was usually the veteran. So it was also interesting invitation to conversation about how military can be, or being a veteran can be ultimate equalizer in society, saying, oh, look, and I'm an immigrant. Look, there's a woman immigrant that is a veteran, United States Marine Corps veteran. So for me, it was a really big part of identity, creating American identity initially, but it's a humbling, very humbling, and still a little bit uncomfortable, because I think in this country, at least, meaning United States and America, it's a voluntary service. Mm-hmm. So there's sometimes also opportunity to have deeper conversations that are veterans around the world that are drafted, or military in general is not held in very high regards. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's my first impression. Thank you for your service. I referred to taxes or the people that didn't have a chance to come back.
Yeah. Well, I would just tell you, Agatha, you just dropped quite a bit on us to think about when you think about it being potentially the great equalizer, or what women veterans go through, what someone who is an immigrant and also a veteran experiences. Wow, I think that we have to give some more thought to that. And also, I mean, quite frankly, the reality that, oh my, so many don't actually get to come home. So many don't get to come home. So there is that humbling that also happens sometimes when someone says, thank you for your service. There's a space within me that is almost like, please don't thank me. Please don't thank me. Please don't. Please don't. You know, there's just so many who have given so much more. Michael or Omar, would you like to address that?
Yeah, sure. Just to tag on. So the two things that come to mind are, I'm super thankful because there's this deep connection with the American people, with the armed forces, with, like you said, been at war for 20 years. So the local community, the average Americans are still in touch. And that's just a huge reminder to me. So super thankful. And then the other word you said was humbling or humbled. So, because, you know, the Gold Star families, they gave the ultimate sacrifice and their loved ones gave the ultimate sacrifice, and they're continuing to give the ultimate sacrifice. So to me, when I hear that phrase, I'm super thankful, but then I'm humbled because I think about the Gold Star families who are continuously living out that sacrifice. So it's a powerful phrase. It can be uncomfortable, but my go-to is always just, man, super thankful and just humbled and thinking about friends and family who, you know, have given the ultimate sacrifice and their families are still living that day to day. So
Yeah. Thank you. Omar.
So in addition to what the other panelists mentioned, I think there's two types of people who state it. It's people who are, you know, they mean it. And I think there's people who just say it just to say it. When they, oh, you're a veteran, thank you for your service. And it's for anyone out there that's going to say thank you to your for your service to a veteran, just be mindful of, just like with any NECR, they teach you how to use active listening. They teach you how to understand nonverbal communication. That means a lot, because if someone walks up to me and says, Omar, thank you for your service, I've had people say, thank you for your service. And then I've had people say, thank you for your service. And those are two different things. So just be mindful of, if you're going to say it, you know, mean it. And if you don't mean it, don't say it, because no one's going to hold it against you. But there is a lot to unpack when your fellow American tells you thank you for your service. And so I think you, as a person, you join the military not to be thanked for your service. You join the military because, for me, it was Osama bin Laden. I was 2003 high school graduate. Half of my graduating class joined the military in all 5 branches.
Wow.
And we had a record number of people from our class who became officers, who became senior non-commissioned officers, commissioned versus senior non-commissioned officers. And so it was a lot of, I'm from Texas, from West Texas, where it's, you know, it's like, it's a masculine thing to join the military. But I will say that when my friends and I, you know, AC and I hadn't talked for a while, man, but we used to talk a lot. And our mutual friend Lizzie, and her and I talk a lot. It does mean a lot to the veteran when we can tell that it's sincere when it's being communicated to us. So just be mindful of that. And but it's a lot to unpack on us when we hear another American say thank you for your service.
And how do people feel about veterans saying it to veterans? I mean, because veterans sort of know a little bit more.
Yeah,
So
that's different. So I've never experienced a veteran not mean it. Like, for instance, like a peer of mine that works with me in this job in Indiana. One of the first things he said was, thank you for your service. And he's an Army guy. And it meant a lot because you could just see it, that he was just like, hey, I know what you went through. You know, we're different services, but if you stick around for 10 years, Like all these guys who stuck around for over 10 years, everyone has a story. Everyone has a struggle. Everyone has lost people. You know, that's just it's a trend, especially your West Point graduate here. He went through 4 years of basic training. And so when you hear a veteran say it to you, it is very meaningful, at least from me and from other people that I've talked to.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me chiming in,
Yeah.
I really could not agree more. As at least for me, especially thanking for a service to a Vietnam era veteran, Korea era veteran, and I try to say that I'm a Marine first. It has a really big, I think, almost emotional load, significant. It's such a sign of respect, and I find myself with colleagues or people that I meet that I talk to their happen to be veterans. I think my first impression is like, well, thank you for your service. That I acknowledge that in many respects you probably had much more challenging experience than I have. So to your point, I think in that relationship, it's a really different statement.
Yeah. I see.
I always say thank you for your service to any Marine. Because if it wasn't for the Marines, we'd be doing their job. And I got to do my job because the Marines were doing their job. So thank you for your service, Agatha.
No, that's very real. It's interesting because in some ways you're all saying there's something about family, being able to thank family. If you've been a part of the military, it's family thanking family. And there's something pretty special when your family recognizes you, when your family who knows some things that other people may not know acknowledges what you've given, acknowledges what you've shared. So I think that, boy, there is just something special about that. We did get a question that came in, but it's actually something we want to talk about anyhow. And each of us sort of mentioned it. It's the NECR program itself. I am, always thinking about what NECR means to veterans or anyone in the military, anyone who is serving at this capacity, and what the program actually does for us. And each of you addressed it a little bit when you introduced yourself. And so I'd like to come back to you again and ask you to tell us why you decided to first of all, go to Columbia. Let's start there. Why in the world did you go to Columbia? This Ivy League university, which by the way, has a significant percentage of veterans that do choose Columbia. Many choose general studies, but you all coming in at the master's program and choosing NECR. So could we start with why you chose Columbia first? And then why specifically you chose the NECR program? And Michael, I see you've unmuted yourself, so I'll go to you first.
I mean, I'll open it up because I have you to thank. So 2017, and I was looking at business school programs and, just exploring, and you contacted me and you said, you should look into this NECR program. And I had no idea that you went, and I kept looking around. I was like, nah, I'm good. And then the second time you hit me up, and then I looked at it and I was, just blown away by the program. So, but to answer your question, for Columbia University, after looking at the program and then being in New York City and stepping onto the campus and meeting individuals, there's just this greater sense of purpose. Like what happens at Columbia doesn't stay at Columbia. It is immediately impactful in the city, and then it's pushed out through the rest of the world. So that's why I chose Columbia. But the NECR program, digging into it, one, it's a master's of science. So you learn theories and you learn analytical tools that you can dissect conflicts in business or in the international community or in the local community. Two is the soft skills that you learn for mediation and negotiation and hands-on practice with individuals in group settings or one-on-one. And then the third thing that really drew me to it was the faculty. The faculty is unbelievable. Dr. Fisher Yoshida, she's a former McKinsey, and then you have Pascal, who's a seasoned UN mediator, and then you have Dr. Peter Coleman, who is nothing short of the leading subject matter expert for conflict outside of Morton Deutsch himself. So it's just those 3-tier things, and then stepping on the campus and being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. Just like, oh yeah, this checks all my boxes here. So, and I remember calling you being like, hey, this looks pretty interesting. Can we talk about this? And then you were very gracious with me afterwards. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. So
the NECR program, I think, should be mandatory for everybody. I have to say that. It is one of the best programs out there. And I think I will always say that because of what it makes you confront in yourself. The one thing about conflict is you got to understand who you are, in that conflict. And the NECR program makes you deal with yourself while you're also then looking at how you can relate to others. Asif, I see that you've taken yourself off mute.
I wanted to catch on to this train ride of self-talk, that the fact that, you have this world outside of you and it feels like it's full of conflict. And in a short word, I just want to say NECR makes it feel like there's a conflict within you. There's not much really going on outside. And I want to back it up with the NECR's ability to reflect on yourself. So more you reflect on yourself, more you see how you see other people as the conflict. If you start seeing yourself as a person who's not in a conflict with somebody, you're not in a conflict anymore. And if that's the biggest takeaway of going through our program, I think that was worth it, because the question that came in, it asked like, how do you use NECR at your workplace or your work environment? Just literally what I just said. You start looking at things differently. You start looking at conflict differently, because conflict is about what you make out of it, right? And how you want to be participant in it. How do you engage it? How do you manage it? So I got into the program not realizing what I was getting myself into, because I really had the ambition of, following through with cybersecurity programs and, learning more and more about network security and infrastructure security. So I was very structured person when it comes to, learning what else I was learning. So NECR didn't feel that way. NECR felt it had multiple things going on at the same time, and you have to be in control of all of it. Right? You're talking about mediation, negotiation, conflict resolution, figure out dynamics, theories. None of them was structured, because it will be based on person to person, right? It'll be based on the conflict. So if it's geopolitical conflict versus a human to human conflict, or conflict between organizations, how do you control all of that? So at one point or another, I had to come to realize that it's about controlling yourself. Like, that is the ultimate goal here, is to control yourself. And as you control yourself, you get control of things that you have no control over, or you at least perceive it that way, right? And then you start managing that conflict. So I thought that was very useful, because, on hindsight, I look back in other programs. I just finished a program last year about ethical hacking. Dry and cut, right? It's like, you do this, you get this, you get this, you get this, and you take these steps and you do success, right? Of course, NECR was not that program. It's like, you do this, and you get success. Ethiopia stops this genocide right away. No. And I thought that's something that I've been super appreciative of since 2018. Is the fact that nothing is in my control, but at least I have some sort of control over myself. And I got NECR to thank for that.
Yeah. One thing Omar mentioned was really about listening. I think he earlier talked about listening. And so, Omar, can you just talk about that a little bit more as it relates to why you came to Columbia, what you got out of the NECR program? Because as both Michael and Asif talked about, they basically are looking at ways that we have to listen both internally, but then also listen to others.
So I can't remember who described this to me, so I won't use that example. I think the first introduction that I wasn't a good listener came at Columbia, and it was my classmates, and I'll never forget. Half of my class, they were in almost every class of mine, my cohort, and I won't forget them because of the learning that they helped me grow personally. Active listening is taught almost in half of the class. It's discussed in half of the class. It's probably taught heavily in a couple of the classes, and it's transformational. When I learned what active listening was, and I started to apply the principles, it helped me in my relationships, both at home, with my children, my spouse. It helped me at work with my colleagues, with my superiors, with my direct reports. I was a above average Air Force officer before I started the program there. I was probably going to achieve some success, some 05, 06 level success. But I think what I took away from the program, and it started to change me from the inside, I would argue the moment I took Barry Somers' class is when my transformation, everything else, like I think his class, and there's maybe the CMM class was pretty good. I think that was taught in advanced negotiation. Those were like the web classes that everything else connected to, that when you take them in conjunction with the other classes, it really helps you. And active listening, reflective listening, the understanding the theory and how to apply it transformed me in ways that I know a lot of people say, "Oh man, you're very mature as a 35-year-old." Well, you know what? It's because I actually worked at it and I spent $100,000 to learn it. But I want to specifically answer this question here. How has the NECR program helped you in your current employment role? Listen, that's important because you're spending a lot of money for this program. I will tell you, I think I spent, it was about $100,000 for me to attend this program. The GI Bill paid for a lot of it, right? They only paid for 50% of it. I have definitely multiplied that investment. I was, as a captain, you're making a $75,000 a year. And that was 6 years ago when I graduate. I am well past that. And you start multiplying my promotions, my bonuses, all this, I'm in corporate, you start multiplying that. A lot of it is the same performance reports are saying the same thing, no matter which company I'm at. Man, Omar's great to work with. Omar listens very well. Omar actions things appropriately. He asks questions. People want to be around him. The things that are directly taught by the faculty in this NECR program. And the shout out goes to the director. She literally picks all these people. And so I'm sure she has input from other people, but when I talked to Beth all those years ago, she was like, yes, this person is who we want versus I don't think we're going to go in a direction of that type of person. She's very decisive and she knows what she wants. And she created the best negotiation conflict resolution program, I think, that's out there. So it makes a direct impact on your deployment decisions and your outcomes going forward.
Thank you. Akata, I see you took yourself off mute, and I also want to explain, there was a question on what CMM is. CMM stands for Coordinated Management of Meaning, and it really goes directly to how we make sense of the world around us. Coordinated Management of Meaning, there are many courses that still take place with CMM. There's an institute on CMM. That's like one of the things I encourage everybody to get on top of. It helped me. It still helps me in everything. If I'm trying to struggle my way through something, I got to back up and I use some of those tools to help me take another look at something just by trying to make and understand the meaning of what is being said. So it's a communications tool, but it is also a very practical tool and just helping you to understand yourself and others. And it encourages space for us as individuals to always look at the other side, to understand there's more in the picture than just the way that you view what's being said, but there are other viewpoints, other ways of seeing what takes place. So I do encourage people to check out CMM a lot. And Michael had mentioned, actually Michael and Omar both mentioned names of some of the instructors, including Beth herself, who is the director of our program, and Dr. Peter Coleman, who is unbelievably amazing, and Barry Somers. I'm just telling you, they have the best faculty ever anywhere. And I do encourage people to check some of the things out. Peter Coleman has a new book out, really looking at how we can deal with the conflict that's happening now. And his book is actually entitled, I think, Why Hate, how we can get out of this conflict, the way out. And I do encourage people to check it out, because for our current circumstances where there's so much division and so much just angst going on out there, he gives us some real practical tips for moving forward. Agata, I ran my mouth. Go ahead.
I think I would like to start maybe just for veterans, if I can speak a little bit broadly. So 3 experiences. All veterans have to leave home, and they go to places that most of them don't want to go, at least for training. So they have to leave home at a very young age, and they have to be tested, at least physically. And most importantly, we adopt strangers as family for various reasons, motivations from self-survival to just having friendships and relationships. So for that group of people, I think references and recommendations are, I think, much more meaningful to the general public. And for me, I love New York. This is a place that adopted me. So I really, really wanted to live in New York City for a little bit. And I registered for a webinar with Professor Yoshida Fisher, and it was so intriguing. It's like, oh, well, I will not go to get an MBA. I think this would be a best graduate program for me. And to the point, our comments from my fellow veterans, exposure to New York City itself and to faculty, but also fellow students, was so incredibly rewarding. Learning theories, it's probably possible in other institutions, but combine this with something that Barry Summers teaches, which was, I think it's a gem, the interpersonal communication, ability to be in a class with almost no disclosure agreements, but to receive uninhibited feedback, sometimes painful, sometimes curious, sometimes confusing. It's very, very unique. I think probably nationwide that most schools don't offer. You can probably have a PhD in clinical psychology and you will not get that much valuable input about your own behavior, how you communicate to the world, to other people, consciously, unconsciously, and to be able to name this, use it, even reflect on it. It's really unique to this program. So except New York City having value in itself to live in that dynamic environment, ability to combine theory with tangible life skills. It's a very, very unique thing at Columbia, and it's very unique to this program.
Thank you. One of the questions someone submitted, I'm just going to read it, people. I believe communication is our common denominator. In what way do you believe conflict resolution, mediation, had an effect on you in the military? And then after being in the military, why the profession of conflict resolution? Over the weekend, a Navy ship was launched in the name of our cousin, Harvey Milk. Thank you for your service. Anyone want to take that one? I do know the person just said thank you, so I think that's wonderful too.
That's a wonderful news. I'm so glad to hear that. I have to look that up. Thank you for sharing that information. Yeah, I think communication. I guess let me say it that if when you're in a rush, you look at one thing only, right? So you have the tunnel vision, maybe. Now there's a degree of tunnel vision, but at the same time, from my experience, it felt like I lived in a tunnel vision all my life, right? It's because I had a scope into a single work that I will do and single scope of everything that will happen within that tunnel, right? So tunnel vision, not that, the small tunnel vision. I'm talking about that big tunnel vision that surrounded my head all the time. And the reason I'm saying that is because I saw it only in tunnel, and whatever happened in that tunnel, anything outside of the tunnel was not really important. I ignored it. I was very biased toward what it is that I was seeing. Now, I don't know when I changed, but I will definitely pinpoint to the NECR program and say, well, this is when that pivot started to happen, right? This is when that shift started where we were focusing on nodes, right? Nodes in a network. And I said to myself, well, that's important. I hope they don't talk about it ever again. But they kept talking about it over and over. And then I said, well, now you're telling me something that I don't want to really focus on that much, but I just saw the value of nodes and nodes in a network.
Steve,
So
could you
that's
just explain nodes? Would you just explain nodes for people so they know?
Let's just call it a piece of paper with a bunch of dots in it, and how do you connect those dots, right?
Okay.
And each nodes could be an individual, organization, whatever the nodes you want to name it. And so beyond that tunnel vision, one of the things that I'm realizing more and more is that, like, yeah, okay, you are always at step one of everything. You always have to, you always get forced into step two, regardless of how you like it or not. But there's a step three that you have to force yourself while other people are not willing to, right? And in communication, it's a birth-given right that we get to communicate. If we communicate, it's a birth-given right because everybody else around us is communicating. If that's a step one, what's the step two to that? Step two that everybody forces you to get to is that with communication, you decide. Right? You make a decision off of that communication. So if I was to be acknowledged by somebody, it's somebody else's decision to acknowledge me, just like it will be my decision to acknowledge them without 0 words being spilled out, just being present in a room, right? That's the piece of communication and decision making. The third piece of it is what NECR comes into place, talks about persuasion. That ability that you use communication and decision and you persuade somebody in a cycle of communication over and over to help them decide, because you're making a decision yourself, you have to persuade yourself just like you would persuade somebody else to make that decision. So I think communication is a key to get to that decision and persuasion down the path, but persuasion is a hard work and NECR promotes that.
Anyone else want to address this?
There's one course that sort of kicked off the NECR program when I started. I think it's understanding conflict and cooperation or something to that effect. Do they still do that as the first course? That right there is like a foundational course to help you understand like conflict resolution as it pertains to any situation, and to recognize that conflict is it's always going to be there, and it's healthy conflict. There's unhealthy conflict, stuff like that. But one of the things as you go through, whoever asked the question, Louis, if you're in the NECR program, I'll answer this way. The longer you go through the program, the better at conflict resolution. You're going to be able to identify it. You're gonna have steps to use to help mitigate whatever conflict arises and possibly resolve it. But the first step is identifying that you have a problem, right? That's what you don't understand how to do without understanding what conflict resolution is. And when you understand the problem, then you can even sort of just power your way through. You may not do it very well, but you at least understand it enough to try to get help to resolve it. I think that is a big deal. The military is rife with conflict. Internally, you have external conflicts. You got conflicts between you and the next office, or between organizations, or between two installations who are all vying for the same fixed budgets. And I don't like this person, I don't like that person, all that type of stuff. People who are willing to destroy your career. I learned this, I saw this firsthand as a commander. I had people willing to destroy another person's career to get promoted. And I recognized that person was hurting. And it was a combination of multiple professors who helped me understand mediation, learn that at Columbia. I learned skills practicum, looking at yourself as an instrument, Beth's classes, Barry's class, even John Zinser's class and ombuds. I used a lot of those tools to help mitigate some of the conflicts that arose in my organization. But one of the things I also figured out with conflict resolution, that when the power plays where you sit in the power dynamic, if you're the top person, the middle person, or you don't have very good power distance with whoever you're trying to solve that conflict for, you got to understand that as well. These are all things you're going to learn in the NECR program, and you're going to learn them very well, because the NECR program, to Agata's point, is very practice based. It's not a theory based, I'm going to get a master's and get a doctorate in this type program. You actually learn how to use it. Because I've went and done another program in the same field, and it's not the same. It's theory based, very little practice, 95% theory, 5% practice. NECR, 70% practice, 30% theory. So, and that's what makes it transformational. And you'll be able to recognize conflicts at work and resolve them. And then people will like you. People will like you more if you make their work situation more inhabitable. You have less people leaving, means you have more retention, more bonuses, et cetera. Sorry, because people have a better work environment. Hope that answered your question.
Part of what's interesting, Omar, you brought up power, and in the military, out of the military, wherever you're at, power is at play. And one of the things in the NECR program that you learn about power is the different types of power, whether you have power over, power under, power with, there are different types of power that we operate in and that we literally move throughout our existence. And when you can identify the various power structures and you can begin to apply the other theories that you learn within NECR, you get to find pathways to maneuver so that you create what is really the win-win-win situation. I think in negotiations itself, Beth has always taught people that there's a difference in the way some people look at negotiation. If you're looking at negotiation as I win, you lose, yay, yay, or you win, I lose, then in essence, we both lose because your win is a very temporary thing. But if you can begin to gain skills that create the win-win, did you all do the ugly orange thing, which I love, the ugly orange activity, to help us remember and think that there are ways for all of us to win. And that's how we approach this thing when it comes to conflict. How do we understand the real basic needs that are not being met? There are some real challenges in our world. And Agata, I see you have yourself off mute, so I'm going to come to you, but I don't want to leave without us really dealing with the fact that we're living in some very challenging times right now. And so I really would love to hear your voices on what we may be able to do as graduates of NECR, as people who have served in the military and understand service. How do we bring those two things together to begin to look at these challenges, these massive challenges, and find ways to resolve conflict? And Agata, I'm coming to you just because you're off mute.
Thank you. So for me professionally, and I went to have another academic endeavors, but NCR allowed me to have a professional relationship with a faculty and friends that I still reach out to. For example, I'm working on a big project and I call Professor Pascal. I'm a little bit stuck here. What would you suggest? And he's like, just map it. It's one of the tools that you learn. Sounds probably trivial to most of the graduates, but it's I think also very unique to the program that you have a network of experts or friends that you can reach out to. And it's understood that sometimes there's a friendship and a relationship, but it's a really, there's this almost sentiment. The conflict is so complex but also very personal, to have ability to reach out professionally speaking and in areas or in situations that you might just need a second opinion. Also, big takeaway for me about conflict, learning about different type of conflicts, it's to be able to sit down and think about what matters to me and to others, and when it's not a good idea to engage for various reasons and various tools that you might want to assess this with, which I find very useful working for the State Department, to know my place, know other people's place, and being able to very high level of accuracy anticipate behavior. But ability, and I big heads up to Asif, I used to reach out to him a lot. Even I find myself right now, there's a lot of racially charged language, a lot of transformation in the United States, to literally print out some of my notes from class and handing to my coworkers that maybe we should approach a problem according to the checklist or notes that I had in NCR program.
Thank you. So if I really would love to hear your voices on what we can be doing now, what we should be doing, what we can do. I think Akata talked a little bit about really just knowing you for yourself, because there are times when you should not engage because it's not right for you. And we need to give ourselves permission and understanding, and that is something that NECR will also teach you. Every conflict is not yours to go solve. So what else can we be doing? What should we be thinking about? And I'd really like to hear from all of you on that, if it's okay. Asif, I see you've taken yourself off mute, so we'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'll refer to the quote from Lao Tzu. You know, all the greatest journey starts with single step. Right? Did I get that right? So it's about just taking that small step forward, right? Small step forward. And I think that's what makes the difference, because you have to take the small step every day. And I hear it in a lot of other discussions that, you know, you have to have a big, broad approach. And so I want to take a step away from that big, broad approach and say, like, well, no, just do it internally, all right? Just do it with yourself. Now, how would you like to see the next 10 years, right? So when we negotiate, we want to have a vision created in the conversation. The conversation goes that, hey, I am this person, I have this vision for me. What is your vision, right? What is that you see out of this negotiation? So it's ability to portray a picture for somebody who you're dealing with. If that person that you're dealing with is you do what you have to do with somebody else, right? You create that vision for yourself and say, like, okay, how do I see myself, and how do I want to live in the world the way it should be? And that small step forward is the step towards that. You know, how do you deal with everybody else, right? Could that be, you know, drive through on a fast food place versus you're dealing with the president of the country, whatever the case is. You always have to know yourself, and I think NECR does a good job of teaching us about ourselves. And we have physical strengths that, you know, we display, but we cannot display our mental strength. And that mental strength is only recognized by ourselves, and, you know, over time maybe other people will pick up, but that mental strength, that ability to work that mental strength, requires a lot of team support. Like Agatha will mention that, you know, you have to reach out to your alumni, you have to reach out to your friends, you have to reach out to colleagues, reach out to so many people. And when you reach out to them, and type of help that you need from them comes with that message over and over, is that, what kind of person are you? Show your mental strength. Show your mental strength in everything you're doing, because physical strength, you don't have to show much. It's already defined. Mental strength is not defined. So you have to have the ability to display that mental strength by reaching out to people that you're not comfortable reaching out to. And, you know, not showing your discomfort, but rather showing that ability that, you know, I'm strong enough to that, you know, I don't like you, but I still approach you. That's the mental strength we need. And when it comes to dealing with a conflict, first thing first, you always take that hat of a mediator, right? You're not there to negotiate. You're not there to solve a conflict. You're negotiating. You're persuading somebody through your communication, because you've decided that that's the best course forward. So you show your mental strength by reaching out to somebody that you might not like, but they don't have to know that. They can believe it. Maybe that is the fact, but at the same time, you can work around it. And I think that's the approach that we have to do. Start with ourselves and move forward with the people that we may or may not agree with.
One of the things I do, actually, I hold listening sessions, and I've been doing them for quite a while now, actually. And it really is just to create a space for people who maybe don't want or are afraid to say what they want to say, but they've got to be heard. You know, one of my favorite sayings, Martin Luther King said, right at its end is the voice of the unheard. And sometimes what we need to do is create space for people to be heard. And a lot of the tension that we see happens because people believe we're not listening. We don't value their voice in any way. And NECR teaches us, or at least it taught me, a little bit on how to really listen and hear. Sometimes it's not the words that's being said, it's the words that's not being said that I need to learn how to listen to. Sometimes it's not the action that is actually taken, but it's the action that's not taken that I need to pay attention to, because in there's communication happening all the time. Michael, I'm going to come to you, even though you didn't take yourself off mute, because I really do want to hear from everyone on what you think we can and should be doing. We graduated from this program, we stepped up to serve, and now what? What should we be doing?
I think in general, conflict is complex. So you have to hit the pause button and you have to do your due diligence and you have to go through block by block.
Mhm.
So looking at whether that's conflict in your family or your local community or nationally or internationally, you have to take a step back and look at the primary, secondary, tertiary actors, the reinforcing and inhibiting feedback loops, the dynamics, the structures, the power. Even the value homophily, the networking, the weak ties, the structural holes. Got to take a step back and just identify what you're actually working with. And then at that point, my encouragement is to find the data points of interdependence, because they exist. So interdependence is shared interests or common goals. So at least if you have a conflict in the family, at least you still know you have the same DNA. So there's a point right there. Or in your local community, everyone cares about their local community. Or as a nation, everyone cares about success for the nation. We might have different definitions, but at least that's a data point. So that's my two big things: is hit the pause button and do your due diligence. Like Dr. Fisher Yoshida always says, the best thing you can do for a negotiation is prepare, prepare, prepare. It's the same thing with conflict analysis. So my encouragement is to take a step back and do your homework before you do anything, and then identify shared common grounds, no matter if it's macro, micro, or meso, regional, local, or international. They still exist. And that is where you should build foundation in the future, or it might be you're in your first meeting or whatever situation if it's in, if that makes sense. So
yeah, thank you, Michael. I think
yeah,
that
absolutely.
was absolutely phenomenal for us to remember it all. Omar, I know that you have a hard stop coming up, and we have just a few more minutes to go. So I'd like your take on what we should be doing right now.
Michael covered it all.
Yes, he did.
In addition to what Asif and Agata and Michael already said, I guess to simplify it, I learn a lot from a lot of people. And I think I listen very well, thankfully now. But someone once said that picture yourself as a change mechanism, as like you have a glass of water and you have some dye, and you drop a piece, you do a drop of dye in the water. It's going to start to change the view of that water. Now, if you drop multiple dyes in that water, then it's going to happen quicker, and it'll eventually encompass the entire water. That's us. We are the dye. The water is the laboratory of the world, and there's always going to be situations where you can make an impact. I think everything starts first internally. It's not usually a good look if you're broken and you're trying to fix someone else's problem. And then I think your second step is your family. And that could be you and your dog. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's the idea that, take care of the conflict closest to you, and and start to, expand out upon that. Because I will say this: when you try to take on other conflicts and your own house isn't in order, other problems are going to present themselves, and you're not going to be able to finish your work on the project you were doing, because nothing will take you off of whatever you're doing quicker than a dysfunctional situation inside and immediately in your family. If I'm not treating my kids right and I'm out there trying to change the world, but my kids are neglected, I will never be able to focus on what I'm doing 100%. And so I think it comes down to, it's not always the sexy thing is to get out there and to do the things that look great, but sometimes it comes down to take care of here first, what's inside, get yourself right, and then you will be that shining beacon light for everyone else to sort of benefit off of. One question here any recommendations for future opportunities for a mid-career attorney? I'm not going to answer this just for the attorney question. What I'm going to say, this is for anyone. The really beneficial thing about people going through the NACR program now and later is you have way more people that you can lean back on for as alumni than La-Verna had, than I had, because there's more and more alumni. And I know Chris, I think, what's his last name? Osberger? I can't remember his last. He's an attorney in New York. And there are multiple attorneys that were in my cohort. It really comes down to reaching out, finding out who's an NACR alum. And if you're an NACR student or alum, they will help you. Ask Asif, right? They will help you because you're in, like, we're passionate about this. And the other thing I wanted to mention before I have to leave is this. When going through the program, I think some of us at the time felt like we didn't have the vision that we have now. And when I talked to a lot of people in my cohort, I talked to Saad once, like 2 years ago. We were in New York. We were just chatting. We didn't understand the impact that this NACR program would have on our lives when we were going through it. So be patient, learn as much as possible, and really try to absorb this material. It's life-changing. It's like once the bread settles, it tastes better. Once the steak has a chance to, what do you call it, rest for a few minutes, it tastes better. It's the exact same thing with the NECR. You will know what I'm talking about when you get there. So sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Amar. Thank you for taking time with us. I know that we are actually at the end of our time. There are still questions in the Q&A. And Agata, we haven't heard from you actually just in the overall. I think saying hi to you too, by the way, in the Q&As. I'm not going to say that I know how to say the name, but just Michael, they saying hi to you. So, and really wanting to, when you take time off, well, how do you get back into this thing? And there are lots of different ways to approach negotiations. I think throughout the discussions today, each person has presented some of their own perspectives on what they learned in the NECR program and things that you might think about applying if you're going to be stepping back into the workforce. So I just want to I want to not answer the question specifically, because the other thing that you learn in NECR is that you always got to gather more information. You got to really understand what you're really working with before you do that. Agata, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
So I just want to, because we are now at time, I want to give the three of you still a time to have some final words about where we are, where we go, anything that you want to say to anyone considering coming to Columbia, considering the NECR program. I just want to give this time to you, and Agata, we'll start with you.
I will highly recommend, as a veteran, as an immigrant, as a woman, and as a professional, NECR program, with the major points that it is a unique, it provides unique tools in academia, I believe, not only in terms of conflict resolution, because of its location, because of the amazing professors that are available, and exposure to students. And it's a very, very rewarding to be part of institution that really caters to your individual professional development and also individual almost state of mind as a veteran. So that program provides that, which is really very rarely the case nationwide. And also professionally, as my fellow veterans mentioned, this is almost like a snowball. Start small with self-realization, ability to name things, reflect on things, acknowledge things in terms of conflict on your own role in conflicts, and grows into the big expertise that you can take into many fields, not necessarily in the conflict resolution, mediation, international relations, or legal sphere. You have people that study or engage professionally in technology and cyberspace or other issues. So this is a foundation that it's really, really beneficial for people like veterans that in some part of their life, they were engaged in armed conflict, which have a little bit of experience and a little bit of tools that they can take with them and build.
Thank
and
you so much.
I mentioned New York, it's a great place to experience. If you can make it there, it's true, you can make it anywhere.
Thank you, Agata, very much. Asif.
Yes, everything Agatha said, I want to just add a few pluses to that. Thank you, Agatha, for putting it so well. One of the things that I would recommend to anybody who's listening, anybody who will come across this talk, is the fact that if you have seen conflict prior, this is not the end, right? There's more conflict that is coming down the pipe. One of the key things I want to address is the decision making and how technology is shifting that ability to make decisions for not just a local population, but worldwide. And when I say that change, that shifted ability to make decisions is shifting to a point that it's going to be very tribal, I might say. And that is disturbing. So what we need is more of what Omar said, that dye that goes into the water and changes the water color, right? So that ability to articulate the decision makings that we have and to negotiate off of that. So we need to communicate better, we need to make better decisions, and we need to have the persuasion behind this communication so we can make the best decision possible. And technology is the unknown, unseen, unheard of, or maybe not even felt invisible barrier in this decision making. It could be for good, but it's most likely will change the decision making towards something that we are not so familiar with, even though we have experienced conflict for so many thousands of years. This conflict will require more of people like us that says, I am a conflict manager and I need to help with this conflict, not in a sort of that I will resolve it, but rather I can manage this conflict so that way other people can benefit from this management of conflict. And me being in the technology side of things, artificial intelligence and machine learning, these are the processes that are coming into the market right now, where ultimately we will benefit so much from it, but at the same time, our conflict will take a weird turn into places that we are not able to manage it properly from the distance. So we have to be in the movement as the decisions are being made and the persuasions are happening and the communication is going off the rail. We have to manage that ahead of time, and we have to be present to change the color of the water as a dye.
Thank you, Asif. Michael, one last word for us.
No, just if you're interested, I would highly encourage you to go to this program. So it really, really sharpens your strengths, it exposes your weaknesses, and then it builds upon your past experiences. But more importantly, it creates a foundation that anything can be built on. So whether you're in tech or whether you're in conflict resolution, international relations, local community, nonprofit, this program really manifests in multiple fields. So, and it's important in our day-to-day life. So definitely encourage it. And I love my time at Columbia University. So that's all I have to say.
So I just want to remind everyone that if you're a part of the NECR program, we in fact meet on Fridays at noon, and we often via Zoom, and we often discuss challenges of the day, and we share and we support each other. And I encourage anyone who is in the NECR program currently or who graduated, come and join us at noon on Fridays via Zoom. And I just want to thank you, Michael, Asif, Agatha, and Omar. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for continuing to care and do all you can to help make our world better. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Have a good day, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.